Cool. Everyone can hear me? Awesome, cool. Really exciting to be here. I think if any of you had told me 5 years ago that I'd be standing in front of a group of 500 people speaking at TEDx, there is absolutely no way that I would have believed you. A few years ago, my life was pretty much all about making money, partying, and being successful. And I really didn't care who got hurt along the way. I was ruthless, I was cutthroat, and to be honest, on the inside, I was absolutely miserable. And I'll start by telling you a bit about how I grew up. I did grow up in Melbourne, and I had what I would consider to be a pretty privileged childhood. So I was really well taken care of materially. I got new clothes, I got to go on overseas holidays every year, I went to private schools, and I considered myself to be pretty lucky. But then on the other side of the coin, my childhood was actually pretty rough. And by the time I turned 18, I'd experienced domestic violence, alcoholism, drug abuse, sexual abuse, and suicide attempts. And I was absolutely convinced that the only way I was ever going to be happy was if I made a lot of money. And to me, being rich was the key to my happiness. So I did go to university for a couple of years, and then I quit. Basically, I didn't do too well at handling the whole poor student lifestyle. And I ended up starting a web design company with a friend of mine. And we did pretty well in our first year, and all of a sudden, I had a lot of money. And like any responsible young adult, I spent it shopping, drinking, and taking drugs. And that was really the extent of my existence for a number of years. And I remember reaching a point where I was like, isn't this what success is supposed to be? You know, I've got everything that I want, but I am still so unhappy. And on the outside, I was trying to portray this image of like this happy-go-lucky party girl. But on the inside, I was absolutely dying inside. And I was lucky because a man came into my life who would later become my mentor, and he recommended that I do a few leadership programs to kind of get me back on track. And I spent a few months working on myself and going through, dealing with a lot of stuff that had happened in my past. And eventually, I found myself on a plane to Sierra Leone in West Africa. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was in Sierra Leone that my heart would really open for the first time. I would find my passion, I would find my purpose, and I would find my voice. And I went to Sierra Leone, and I was living in a community for about a month. And I was there working with some kids who were living in an orphanage, and also helping to build a primary school there. And this is one of the girls that I completely fell in love with. Her name was Wendy. And she was one of the little girls that for the first time really had me like kids, because I didn't really like kids prior to that. And when I came back to Australia, I was a completely different person, and I changed. But it took me a little while to realise it. So I did have another crack at going back and partying and shopping and drinking and doing all that stuff. But after about 6 months, I realised that I just didn't fit in anymore, and I needed to press the reset button on my life. So in one weekend in early 2009, I broke up with my boyfriend, told my business partner I was leaving the business, and I moved out of my apartment in Chirac. And this was pretty scary, as you can imagine, but I knew that my path was going to lead me somewhere else, and I really believe that everything in life happens for a reason. And not long after I'd made this big change, I met David Dixon, and he's now the co-founder of One Girl, the organisation we started together. And back then, when I look back, we were just kind of like these two young 24-year-olds, really passionate, really excited, and really wanting to go out there and just change the world. So we decided to go on a research trip across Africa. And we wanted to learn more about some of the issues that young people were facing there. And we'd organised this whole trip where we were going to meet with a whole variety of different organisations and look at things like microfinance and leadership program and education. And we got a few weeks into the trip, and we were starting to get a bit disheartened because we thought we'd have this compelling sense of really wanting to do something, but we hadn't really seen a cause that really called to us yet. And it turns out that something was actually coming to find us. So we were hanging out at our hostel, and we were just watching this crappy DVD, and we hear a knock at our hostel door. We kind of look at each other and we're like, okay, that's weird. Like, come in, and the door doesn't open. So I drag myself up off the couch, I open the door, and this little girl's standing there. And I go, hello? And she doesn't say a word. I'm like, can I help you? And she still doesn't say anything. I'm like, okay. And then she just pulls this piece of paper out of her back pocket and just thrusts it into my hand. So I take it off her and I started reading it. And it said, "Dear Sir or Madame, my name is Noah and I'm the principal of a local primary school. I certified that this girl Brenda is an orphan and she's looking for $40 to pay for her school fees for the year. Anything you can contribute would be greatly appreciated." And it was all official and had been signed and stamped by the school and had a little scribble on it. And I turned around to Dave and I was like, she's looking for like $40 to pay for her school fees. And Dave was like, yeah, sweet, that's fine, we can help. So he goes back and starts counting out the money. And while he's doing that, I started having a chat with Brenda. And she shared with me, she says, I'm 14 years old and both my parents have died. And I'm living with my grandma and my younger sister. And my grandma is working and she sells maize on the side of the road. And she's lucky to earn about $2 a day. And by the time we pay for our rent and we get enough money for food, there isn't any money left for education. But Brenda was absolutely desperate to go to school and she knew this was her one chance to get herself out of poverty. So she decided to take matters into her own hands and she'd hit the streets asking for donations. And she told us that she'd been on the streets and she'd been spat at and she'd been kicked and she'd been pushed out of the way, but she wasn't going to give up. And Dave walks over, gives her her $40, and her whole face just lights up, like she absolutely can't believe her luck. And we say our goodbyes and say thank you, and we close the door and we sit down. And immediately we were kind of left with this feeling of regret, like, surely we could have done more, you know? And luckily, Brenda thought we could do more too, and we hear another knock at our hostel door. And we walk back over, and Brenda's standing there, and she's like, oh, well, I've got a list of things that I need for school as well. I need books and bags and uniforms. Do you think you can help me? And we're like, okay, come on, this is awesome, let's go. And all in all, it cost us $150 to send Brenda to school for 1 year. And that was our first $150 investment in one girl, in Brenda, that would not only change her future, but the lives of thousands of girls just like her. And when Dave and I came back to Australia from our research trip, that's when one girl was born. And we believe that every single girl on the planet has a right to an education. No matter where she's born, no matter what her culture says, no matter how much her family earns or what religion she adheres to, every single girl deserves the opportunity to learn, grow, and be the best she can be. And we started our work in Sierra Leone. One reason, obviously, because my connection to it, and secondly, because it is one of the worst places on earth to be born a girl. And a girl born there is more likely to be sexually assaulted than she is to attend high school. And there's some pretty crappy odds. Anyway, we set up our first project in Sierra Leone, and I flew across in 2011, and I was going over there to meet our first 100 scholarship girls that we'd put back into school. And it was an awesome trip and kind of went around meeting all different girls, and one of the girls that I met, her name was Aisha. And this is Aisha, and she started sharing her story of how she came to be in our program. And when she was just 3 years old, she lost her entire family. So during Sierra Leone's civil war, rebel soldiers invaded her village, and in the midst of all the chaos, her family just scattered in different directions. And when she came back to her community many years later, her grandma was her only remaining relative. And to earn money, her grandma was working on this quite small plot of land, and they were both living together in this little mud hut. And for the first few years Aisha was back, she did actually have an opportunity to go to school. But then she hit grade 6, and her grandma basically sat her down and said, look, honey, I'm sorry, but I don't earn enough money to be able to put you into high school, so instead you're going to have to come and work with me on the farm. And that's what Aisha did. So she was taken out of school and sent to work on the farm when she was 12 years old. And Aisha shared with us her shame about this. She said, doing the chores and stuff, it wasn't so bad, but whenever she had spare time, she'd just be hiding inside of her house because she'd see all the kids who were walking home from school and they'd all tease her about being a poor, uneducated community girl. And she was really embarrassed by it. 4 years later, we actually came to Aisha's community, and we came looking for 10 girls who would be eligible for scholarships. And on the day of the interviews, more than 80 girls rocked up. Aisha, though, she was absolutely one of the lucky ones. and she's been back in school for 2 years now. And since she's been back in school, she's already learnt 2 new languages, and she's just a natural leader amongst her friends. And this girl is hilarious. She's like a joker, and she loves to have fun. And she told us that when she grows up, she wants to be a bank manager. I know, it's like the money thing, right? Anyway, we came back to Australia and came back with this sense of like, oh my God, I'm so inspired. And oh my God, I am completely terrified. Because all of a sudden, we had these 100 girls who were relying on us to go to school. And I'm going to be really honest with you straight up. One girl was not renowned for its fundraising greatness. So every year, we'd kind of go out and we'd set these really big goals. And we'd be like, let's go raise $20,000. And then we'd be lucky to raise 7. And we did this year on year on year. And it was actually pretty embarrassing. And this time, though, the game was completely different because we had 100 girls relying on us to get it right. We didn't really have that much space to stuff up anymore. And we knew that we needed a new way to engage people in a conversation around girls' education. And we didn't want to do the whole traditional fundraising path that a lot of charities go down. So we started looking at ways that were going to be fresh, that were going to be innovative, and that we were going to be honest. And the very first thing we decided on is that we would never, ever, ever use guilt to sell. And I learned this the hard way. When I first came back from Sierra Leone, I was like a 24-hour-a-day guilt machine. So if you were about to tuck into some delicious meal, I'd be the friend that was there reminding you how the kids in Sierra Leone only get 1 meal a day. And if you were about to go out and buy some new clothes for yourself, well, I'd be there reminding you that you've already got a whole wardrobe full of clothes, and how selfish are you that you even consider going out and buying some more. All in all, I was an absolute nightmare to be around, and needless to say, I really didn't achieve much amongst my family and friends when I got back. But what I learned from it is that we need to inspire change instead, and we believe that change using guilt and shame is absolutely not possible. You need to inspire people to get them to take action. And that really became the cornerstone of what we do. The second thing we decided is that we would never portray the women and girls that we work with as victims. And we believe that every single man, woman, and girl we work with is strong and capable, and that's exactly how we represent them. And I have to be honest with you guys, this wasn't always my worldview, and I'm going to tell you something which is actually pretty embarrassing to admit now. But on my first trip to Sierra Leone, I fully expected to arrive in a country full of very sad-looking people with torn clothes, snot running down their nose, and flies all over their face. And I know it sounds pretty stupid now, but this is what all the ads on TV had shown me what Africa was like. This is what I expected. And I remember when I rocked up at the orphanage for the first time, and I was literally mobbed by like 80 excited, singing, dancing, clapping kids. And they were all wearing clean clothes, they were all dressed appropriately, and there was no snot and there were no flies in sight. And that was really a big eye-opener for me, because I was like, my whole view of what I thought Africa was really shifted. And I realized that Africa doesn't need saving any more than you and I do. And I believe that no matter where we are born, we all face challenges, and every single one of us deserves a helping hand every now and then. So that's kind of where we were left. And I guess our biggest challenge was, how are we going to come up with something that's actually going to fit into these parameters, you know? We've decided no guilt, we've decided no victims, and the third thing was we wanted to make this a whole lot of fun. So that's when the idea of Do It in a Dress was born. And it's a really simple idea. Basically, you wear a school dress so a girl in Sierra Leone can go to school. And like all simple ideas, there's a pretty simple story behind it. And in a very typical Australian fashion, Do It in a Dress was actually born in a bar. So I was at a conference, and I'd met this guy, Dave Dean, and we were sitting down having a couple of drinks. And he shared with me that he was going to be running 21 kilometres in the Melbourne Marathon. And in the past, the Melbourne Marathon had been one of our bad fundraising ideas. So every year we'd try and convince people to run with us, and we'd always go, yeah, $20,000, then we raised 7. But this time it was a little different. And I said to Dave, I was like, so do you think you could run the half marathon in a school dress to see if you could raise a bit of extra money? And at first, he was like, no, as if. And then he had a few beers. And all of a sudden, it was a great idea. So, to make it official, he posted it onto his Facebook page. And people were literally throwing money at him. They were like, we want you to wear a wig, we want you to shave your legs, we want you to wear knee-high socks. And we thought, okay, maybe there's something in this idea. How about we create some new rules around it? So rather than having to run in the Melbourne Marathon, how about we say, you pick a challenge, you raise $300, which is enough to give a girl access to education in Sierra Leone, you do your challenge in a school dress, and you send a girl in Africa back to school. He's going to kill me for showing you this. But this is Dave, our original do-it-in-a-dresser. So of course he did run 21 kilometres. He did manage to get in the wig and knee-high socks as well. Looks stunning. And in our first year, we're like, okay, let's set a big goal. Let's set a goal of raising $40,000. And we were scared, right? We sucked at fundraising in the past. We had no idea if this was going to work. And I decided that I was going to wear a school dress every single day in the month of October to try and drum up extra support. And by the end of the campaign, we had 77 people participate, and we'd raised over $43,000, which was enough to keep our girls in school for another year, which was like, whew, okay, we did it. And then 2012 rolled around, and this time we came back stronger, we came back united, and this time we actually had a little bit of a plan. And I want to show you guys a little bit of what we got up to. Do you want to watch it again? Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so that was last year, and last year we ended up having 700 people from all over the world get their school dress on, and together we raised $280,000, which was enough to change more than... It was enough to change the lives of 2,600 women and girls in Sierra Leone this year, which was absolutely blew my mind and still gives me goosebumps when I talk about it. Some of the cool stuff people got up to, we had girls at university doing bake sales in their school dresses. This was a group of Year 9 boys and girls in the top right. They did a 5-kilometre walk. We had women going out for dinner in their school dresses. We had kids doing aqua aerobics in school dresses. And the guy in the middle went to work dressed like that. And some of my favourite stories, so this is Tal and Kyle, and they actually got married in their school dresses. And as a caveat, they'd already done the whole big white wedding thing, but they needed to make it official, so go in and do the signing of the documents. So we went down to Victorian Registry, and it was crazy because the bride and groom are standing there, matching school uniforms, knee-high socks, and the celebrant didn't say a word. Like, she didn't even ask why they were wearing that. She must have seen some pretty crazy stuff. And then these guys, so this is Dustin, Dale and Jeff, and they hiked 60 kilometres through the Canadian Rockies in their school dress, and it took them 5 days. And Dustin came back, and he lives in Canada, and he ended up scoring an interview on the morning show there. And he had this really awesome interview, and he went backstage and started having a chat with the weatherman. And before you knew it, the weatherman was on TV in his school dress. I couldn't make this stuff up even if I wanted to, seriously. And we just launched again a few weeks ago, and already there are some amazing stories coming out of 2013. So this is Bakara, and she's an Olympic beach volleyball champion. It's a bit of a mouthful. And she was down on Adelaide Beach running a beach volleyball session with some of her friends and some of her fans. And then we had these guys. This is a group of students from Deakin University, and they actually hiked 5 kilometres in the Himalayas in their school dress. An absolutely amazing feat, so I think they're on their way back to Melbourne now. And one of the questions we get asked a lot is, will any of this actually make a difference? And for me, the answer is yes. This is a little girl that I met a couple of years ago. Her name's Ramatu. And when Ramatu was just 11 years old, she was engaged to be married. I'm not sure what any of you guys were doing when you were in grade 5, but I'm pretty sure planning to marry a man more than twice your age probably wasn't on the agenda. And we came to Ramatu's community, and one of the community members flagged it and said, you have to speak to this girl, you have to speak to her dad. So we went and organised a meeting with him, and we explained the benefits of educating girls and how she'll have healthier kids and she'll invest money back into your family. And he was actually really, really open to it. And we kind of struck a bit of a deal. And he said that he would cancel Ramatu's marriage if we would give her a full scholarship to attend school. So that's exactly what we did. And Ramatu now says that when she grows up, she wants to be a lawyer so she can fight for the rights of children all over Sierra Leone so they don't have to go through what she herself almost went through. And Ramatu's story is only possible because of people like you who worn a school dress or made a small donation, and they've completely changed the course of Ramatu's life. And I think, looking back, if there's anything that the past 5 years have taught me, it's that firstly, it's okay to make mistakes and it's completely okay to fail. And we failed over and over and over again. And it's even okay to be angry if life deals you some really shitty cards, which it does. We've got to be honest, it really does. And I guess looking at this, we all have a choice, and we can look at these challenges as opportunities for change and growth, not only in our lives, but in the lives of other people as well. Cool, that's all. Thank you.